I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about how annoying it can be to have crit in the game. It's not that I have a problem with auto attacks dealing damage so much as a problem with the luck involved with it. So today we're going to talk about how I think ADC items could be changed for the better. Of course, I'm sure you guys will have your own opinions as well, and I encourage you to discuss what you feel is best down in the comments below. With that said, let's get right into it. So in the 5.15 patch notes, Hi-Rez released a new and not so improved passive for Silver Branch Bow, which grants the user 1 physical power for every 0.02 attack speed over the 2.5 attack speed cap. For example, if you had an attack speed of 3, you would gain 25 bonus power, if you had an attack speed of 3.5, you would gain 50 bonus power, and so on. Of course, you're still limited to the real attack speed of the cap, which is 2.5. Unfortunately though, this passive kind of sucks because you need such a ridiculous amount of attack speed to make good use of it. But I think a buff version of this passive could actually fit really well into the game and make building as an ADC much more interesting because it opens up higher attack speed build paths that have never existed before. So I've been thinking, how could items be reworked so that ADCs never have to rely on the percentage chance of crit and instead can rely on more reliable items such as Executioner, Kin Size, Ikevall, Silver Branch, and Aussie. Hi-Rez has been trying to remove a lot of random aspect from the game lately with changes in Midgardian Mail, Hunbots, and Naja passive for example. If we're trying to remove chance-based effects from the game, can we remove the biggest core of chance-based effects, which is the entire crit tree? So to help me make this point, I want to take a quick look at why crit can be such a problem. In our first clip here, I deal 2,572 damage in 2.51 seconds with a 100% crit ratio. In the second clip, I deal 2,434 damage in 3.63 seconds with a 50% crit ratio, which means that through bad luck alone, my time to kill has increased by almost 50%. Keep in mind that this is with a fully complete high crit chance build, which gives me 85% crit chance. So even with this fairly reliable build, I can see a massive difference in my DPS purely through chance. The point here is that crit can be frustrating to play with and against because there's no skill involved with how critical chance works. If two AD carries fight with the same crit build shown here and one AD carry misses half of their autos but crits every time, while the other ADC hits every auto but gets 0 crits, the ADC that misses half of their autos will still win. In my mind, that means that crit really shouldn't have a place in Smite when items like Ikevall or Aussie are not only reliable, but also have a much more unique playstyle. But of course, if we're going to remove all 5 crit items from Smite, we're going to need some replacements. So I'm interested in seeing where ADC builds can go with more passive focused items like the new Silver Branch Bow. And to start off, let's think about redesigning the 2 Shuriken items, Wind Demon and Poison Star. With their crit gone, these items will need some stat boost, which I'll put in, but let's mostly focus on their passives. The point here is to brainstorm concepts that can make ADC items more fun and, more importantly, more reliable. Wind Demon passive could transition pretty easily, making it more similar to ATALANTAS Bow. For example, hitting enemies with basic attacks increases your attack speed and movement speed by 5%, stacks up to 4 times, and stacks last for 5 seconds. This not only makes Wind Demon more reliable, but it also gives it a more focused playstyle than before, with a greater focus on landing long chains of auto attacks to keep the passive up. For Poison Star, I was thinking of something a little different. Items would get boring and repetitive if too many kept the stacking effects of ATALANTAS, of Executioner, Ikevall, and so on. So what if Poison Star passive was kept the same, but it had an internal cooldown more like Aussie, where it could only apply every so often? Here's the idea. When you hit an enemy god with a basic attack, they are poisoned for 2 seconds, decreasing their damage by 15% and slowing their movement by 15%. Each god can only be poisoned once every 5 seconds. This turns Poison Star into a more initiation-focused item, where you'll always apply the passive on your first hit, but you won't keep them poisoned for long periods of time like you could with the original. This is great for the beginning of engagements and could also make for a more interesting support style of play, where you can continue to land autos on different targets to keep the poison effect going on as much as possible. Malice could be reworked as well to become a much more reliable item for ability-based builds on gods like Uller or Skadi. However, I think it would make much more sense to have your abilities increase your auto attack damage rather than your auto attacks increase your ability damage. Typically, you're initiating with your abilities first and auto attacking after, so it should just make more sense that way. So with the new passive, enemies hit by your damaging abilities take 20% more damage from your auto attacks for the next 3 seconds. And while we're talking about reworks, let's dive into a quick ATALANTAS Bow rework that should happen no matter what. ATALANTAS Bow is mostly meant to be a heavily nerfed Fatalis substitute for AD carries. By landing auto attacks, you increase your movement speed, which makes it easier to juke and easier to chase. However, since your movement speed is reduced by 50% when you auto attack, ATALANTAS is a little bit of an awkward item because you're much faster after auto attacking than during your auto attacks. So I feel like it makes more sense to make the passive reduce the movement speed penalty while auto attacking. Here's the passive. Hitting enemies with basic attacks reduces your attack movement penalty by 5%, stacks up to 3 times, and stacks lasts for 7 seconds. This new passive would focus on increasing the potential of your jukes rather than your overall movement speed by decreasing the movement speed penalty to 35% rather than the typical 50%. And to make up for the buff to your juking capability, you wouldn't get a big increase in movement speed like you do with the current ATALANTAS bow. You could, however, build Wind Demon and my version of ATALANTAS together to greatly increase your movement while auto-attacking without getting to that crazy level of movement that you could reach with the old haste and Fatalis. Finally, I do think it's important that we also rework the final 2 crit items, Rage and Deathbringer. These 2 exist specifically for crit chance and crit damage, so I came up with a couple of items that I think would make for interesting replacements. For Deathbringer, I have an idea that would definitely require some balancing. If Deathbringer is going to remain as a damage amplifying item, I feel like it just makes sense to give it some sort of penalty in return. So here's what I came up with. The first part of the passive increases your auto attack damage by 20%. However, you also receive a 20% increase to your auto attack movement penalty, setting it to 70%. This means that you would still be able to run around as normal when you're not fighting, but you would move much less while auto attacking, which would naturally make you very vulnerable to attacks. This version of Deathbringer would be a sort of a double-edged sword, where your damage output is very high, but your juking and mobility during fights would be extremely limited. Like I said, definitely an item that would require some balancing effort, but I think it's a cool concept. As for Rage, I'm going to try and not get too crazy like I did with the Deathbringer concept, so we'll make it more like the original. New Rage stacks attack speed off of kills rather than critical chance. You now gain 5% permanent attack speed per kill, capping out at 25% attack speed from 5 kills. Evolved Rage would max out at 40 power and 50% attack speed, which would be very strong, but also should match up pretty well to the late game capabilities of the old Rage. So these are my ideas, guys. Please keep in mind that I'm aware stats may seem imbalanced. I didn't want to bother too much with stat balance because it's not like I work at Hi-Rez. These changes aren't magically going to find their way into the game. I just feel like crit is a part of the game which could be greatly improved, and I think these reworked items would be a great way to go about it. Of course, I would love to hear your thoughts as well, whether you have opinions on the changes I'm suggesting or have changes of your own that you'd like to see. Please feel free to comment down below and we can discuss it in further detail. If you guys enjoyed the video and are interested in seeing more, whether it's on this topic or on others, please do let me know because I'm really interested in making more videos like this one. I just want to make sure that you guys find them interesting as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
I've been seeking for the glory, say my name. And I've been trying to write my own story in the search for fame. I'm sitting here in this empty room, walls keep tumbling down.